Kurt Warner once again back here on the Rich Eisen Show, my Pro Football Hall of Fame friend on the Mercedes-Benz van phone line. How are you, Kurt?
I'm good, man. How are you? Let's get this thing going.
Right.
A little college football this weekend, and then we start the NFL, man. I'm excited.
Okay, let's jump right into it. How does it work with Jimmy Garoppolo as the backup quarterback in San Francisco, do you think?
Well, I mean, obviously the 49ers have been very adamant since, the end of last year that Trey is the guy. I think they have to continue to make sure they stress that to their guys when they have an opportunity that, hey, this is for the best of the team, but Trey is still our guy, because I think we all know, Jimmy has had success. Jimmy has done some really good things in that locker room. And so anytime you have a young quarterback that's probably going to go through some growing pains, it is very easy to look over your shoulder, especially what I look at with this team. They're a really good football team. Like, this isn't just a team that's rebuilding and is a couple years away. This is a team that I believe everybody thinks can compete for a championship if they get good quarterback play. And so that's the other piece to the puzzle. I mean, I remember when I was in New York and started, and they went to Eli, and Eli was the guy. And even though I remember, guys coming up to me all the time, like, why aren't you playing? We had a chance to get to the and so that's the kind of stuff that you really, really have to fight against. And it's not going to be anything that Jimmy does. Jimmy's going to be a great teammate, and I believe he's going to help Trey Lance as much as he can. But it's just natural. If things go against them early and they feel like they're a better team than where they're playing, or the young guy isn't playing up to what they need him to play at to be competitive, that's going to be a tough thing to fight. And no team wants that, where the locker room is divided and there's murmurs about who should be playing, and not even a knock on Trey Lance that he won't be the guy long term. It's just simply the idea that who's the best player for us right now? Who can help us win right now? And I think that's going to be the temptation and the hard thing, and why it's going to be so important for the organization, every opportunity they have, to go, we know Jimmy's here, and we understand he's but he's not our guy. Trey is our guy, and we're committed to Trey. And it's going to be important for the organization when there are struggles from Trey to be confident in going, hey, we're going right back to him. Another example, when I was in New York, we played against the Ravens. Eli really struggled. They put me in. We did really well, almost came back in that football game. And I remember going to Coach Coughlin saying, Coach, you have to go tell the media right now that Eli's our guy. We're going back to Eli. Even though they put me in and they knew, they wanted to put me in to help us win a particular game, that they were still committed to Eli. And those are the kind of things that this organization, I believe, is going to have to do, because they have a quarterback that took them to a Super Bowl, that was on the cusp of another Super Bowl, and guys in the locker room know him really, really well, that's going to be a temptation if out of the blocks Trey Lance doesn't play extremely well or has some really big bumps in the road.
Well, I mean, again, Kurt, if you're John Lynch, the general manager, and you're Jed York, the owner, and you're Kyle Shanahan, the coach, and you look at your roster going into the season, and you've got Nate Sudfeld backing up Trey Lance, or you can have Jimmy Garoppolo backing up Trey Lance, you're like, Jimmy Garoppolo. And there's certainly if the choice is, well, it's Nate Sudfeld backing up Trey Lance, or Jimmy gets cut and he winds up on the Seahawks. Okay. Yeah. No, absolutely we're keeping Jimmy Garoppolo, but this is not just anybody. As you pointed out, it's a veteran who has a lot of people in the locker room who adore him for many obvious reasons. Can you give me an example again of how somebody in the locker room of the New York Giants, when Eli was there and you were there, that came up to you and said, why aren't you starting? Can you put a little bit more meat on those bones? Because that's the real stuff that could be happening in San Francisco in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, so when I started the season, we started 5-2. We lost a couple games, and that's when they made the move to Eli. But even when they went to Eli, at that moment in the season, we were actually a playoff team. Even though we were only 5-4, we were a playoff team at that moment. And that's what these veteran players see, is they understand every year is important, that these opportunities don't come around very often when you're on a championship caliber team, and especially some of these guys not knowing if they're going to be on that team beyond the year. So they want to take advantage of every moment and if they have a chance to get into the playoffs, because how many times have we seen that? I'm an example with the Cardinals of teams that kind of sneak into the playoffs, aren't great teams going into the playoffs, and then they go on a run and they win a championship. And so guys understand that can happen. And so they just want those opportunities and they want to play well. And so that's what we were dealing with in New York. And I had to be the one that, kind of told these guys, hey, I hear you, but this is about the future, and this is about building towards what they would ultimately build towards in winning 2 championships with Eli Manning. But I had to be the one that was kind of the buffer for the coaches at times, even though I wanted to be playing, and even though I felt I was the better player at the time. And so it can be a very awkward situation. It could be very awkward for Jimmy as he's got buddies that come up to him and say that. What do you do? How do you handle that as a backup quarterback? And then, as I said, you never want guys walking into the huddle and kind of second-guessing the situation, with their young quarterback because they've got somebody on the sideline that they think is a better quarterback at this point in time. And so it's a tough situation. It is the reality of it, and you mentioned it. I mean, I would rather have Jimmy on my roster for insurance. I would rather have Jimmy if Trey struggles for a half and we want to put Jimmy in and we believe he can win a close game for us. I'd rather have him there as well. But there is a dynamic there that is going to be very interesting, especially, again, you got to remember, I was only there for 1 year. Jimmy's been there for a couple of years and knows these guys and is close to these guys. So that's a whole nother dynamic, just the relationship they have off the field that is going to be, a natural thing to come up. So it will be interesting and fascinating to watch how this plays out, how the 49ers deal with this. But those things are natural part of human nature, and especially, like I said, because I went to training camp and watched this team. This team is a really good team. I mean, this team, we know what they were last year, but they're a really good team if they get good quarterback play. And that could be a point of frustration for the team at some point this year. And again, we're saying, not that Trey Lance has to go out and struggle. I mean, this young kid, go ball out and and have a year. But I just think we're trying to make that argument that if he does have some struggles, that's going to be part of human nature and the dynamic that they're going to have to muscle through.
My Hall of Fame friend, NFL Game Day morning compadre, and also voice, along with Kevin Harlan of Monday Night Football on Westwood One, Kurt Warner, here on the Rich Eisen Show. So again, as we've established, if you can have Jimmy Garoppolo as your backup and he takes the pay cut to make it happen, check that box. And you also keep him from maybe winding up on Seattle or another team that can stand in your way when you get a chance to win the Super Bowl, check that box. But there's no question that this is a bet hedge in case Lance falters, right? Whether you point out like it's a second half of a game or something. So I
would argue, Rich, that I think they did it. That's a great fallback, is that he's your backup. I would argue just simply that the fact that there wasn't a market for Jimmy and Jimmy wasn't healthy, that I would not be surprised if they trade him fairly early in the season if something were to transpire, whether it be Seattle or anywhere, where there actually becomes a trade market, because that's a way, again, to...
Well, he's got a no-trade clause, Kurt, so he'd have to say yes to that, too, and so...
But Jimmy's... I just don't believe Jimmy, especially, if he's signing a one-year deal, would rather sit on the bench in San Francisco than play anywhere. So if he's getting traded, he's probably getting traded to play, and I would argue... I want to go play. I want to show people I'm healthy. I want to show people what I'm capable of doing, and I want to earn the next spot. So I think Jimmy would be happy to get traded anywhere, that wants him at that point.
Sure.
But I think that's kind of, we're surprised that there's absolutely no market for Jimmy Garoppolo, as good as he's been. Let's re-sign him, and we have that, insurance policy. But I think the bottom line is if something happens on one of these teams, they're going to look to move him really quick, and that will help to squash some of those things that we've been talking about.
Well, I guess that was a big wind-up that I had to ask you this question, and it kind of dovetails into the response you just gave, is that if Garoppolo does get traded and he agrees to get traded and he does get traded, then clearly then they will have seen enough from Lance in the regular season prior to the trade deadline to feel comfortable going ahead and doing that. So if it is a bet hedge in a way against Lance's ability to get to a level to take this team to the Super Bowl, which we've already established in this conversation they could do, what have you seen on film that clearly Shanahan and Lynch and the rest of the front office there have seen in the preseason that gives them a bit of pause to say, okay, we can just go into the season, it's Lance's gig, ups, downs, the whole bag of, the whole schmear, we're willing to deal with it. What's on film?
I mean, to me, it's lack of consistency. And the first thing we always have to remember is that he didn't play a lot, really over the last 3 years. And so I can, again, liken it to my situation where I played 1 year in college. And playing 1 year in college, you don't get to see all the situational football and come to understand how to manage every situation like you do when you play year after year after year. And so when I got cut in the NFL and went and played in all these other leagues, I got to experience all kinds of situational football that made me more ready for when I came back with the Rams later on. And so that's one of the things is, his lack of consistency through different situations has been one thing that I've noticed. There's some things from a technique standpoint that to me need to be cleaned up, or it's going to be tough for him to be consistently accurate. And then it always comes down to decision-making at the quarterback spot. Being able to see the field and understand what you're looking at and work through your reads and progressions quickly. Those are all things that we've seen moments from Trey Lance, but we haven't seen consistency. It doesn't matter if you look at last year when he played. It doesn't matter if you look at preseason. There's a lot of ups and downs with him just in the normal course of playing the position. And so, those are the things that I saw in college. Those are the things that I'm still seeing now. And the question always becomes, how long will it take for, these guys to show us what they're going to be at this level? And will those, consistency issues continue to show up not only this year but throughout his career? Those are the questions that I'm looking to get answered because I've seen very similar things in each of the stints that he's played, college last year and in the preseason.
So then I guess it does. I mean, man, it's just going to be fascinating, Kurt. Like, Hoskins, can you put their schedule up, please? I'm talking to my CP about putting the schedule up here because it is, I guess, does it matter how fast they start, right? I mean, and in that regard, they're at the Bears. They're home for the Seahawks. At Denver, home for the Rams. That's the first 4 weeks. I mean, you got to figure they're going to give Lance all the ups and downs no matter what as long as he's healthy the first 8 games, right? They play the Rams twice in the first 8 games. I'm just wondering how it goes, right? I mean, there's no plan for it. You've got to have a feel. Clearly, Shanahan is terrific, so he knows his offense. He'll probably know pre-snap what needs to be done, and if it's not done, he'll notice it on the spot. Obviously, he'll look at the film, too. I just can't wait to see this play out. I mean, what's your sense of it, Kurt?
I think it really does come down to, do they feel he's that guy or not?
They got him. Now, they drafted him. They went ahead.
No, you don't have to. I mean, you have to think at the time when you draft him he's going to be.
Right.
But now being with them for 2 years, and they made the commitment to him. But really, I mean, we can say a lot of different things, right? Okay, we know we drafted him. We gave up a lot. We've got to play him. And so we've got to come out and say, oh, he's the guy. Like we've seen it. He's got all this. But inside, those guys know if they believe that or not. And so that, to me, is going to be very telling with how the season plays out. If they truly believe he is that guy, and they've seen what they've seen in practice and on a daily basis and his leadership and all that stuff, then I don't think it matters how many ups and downs he goes through. Even if this year becomes a throwaway year as a team, I think they stay with him all year. If there's parts of them that inside are saying, we're not sure. I'm not sure this is the guy, and here's why. And then they go through half the season, and all of those things in their mind continue to show up, like, it's what we thought, it's what we thought, it's what we thought. That's when you have to start going, okay, can we step away from this guy that we gave up, all these draft picks and everything for, and A, can we go back to Jimmy Garoppolo, or B, do we need to go somewhere else if Jimmy's not there, whatever. But that, to me, will be the telling sign as we watch this season play out. If there are those bumps in the road, that how convicted is the organization that they made the right decision and he will be a long-term starter and championship-type quarterback for this team, because I believe that's what both Coach Shanahan and John Lynch are looking for. That's why they made this move, when they had Jimmy Garoppolo, is because they don't believe Jimmy is a top 5 quarterback. He can be top 15, top 20, good quarterback, starting quarterback, but not that guy. So that's why they made this move to begin with, because they didn't believe Jimmy was that guy. They need to be convicted in regards to Trey Lance being that guy, or why do you not go and do the same thing you did to Jimmy, going, well, okay, we don't think he's that guy. We got to go get the guy. And so, again, it's going to be fascinating because you know what people have to say right now. But let's look at this thing 8 games into the season and how he's playing and where the team is, and we'll see if that that same feeling, and energy towards Trey Lance we've seen this whole offseason is still there with the coaches. I mean, you heard Coach Shanahan even after the last preseason game say, like, I wish I could get Trey more reps, but he's as ready as he can be right now. That to me sounds like a coach that's saying, I don't think he's fully ready for everything that's going to come his way. He's not quite there yet, even though season's around the corner. We got to go with it. So, those are the kind of things that I'll be paying attention to from inside the organization.
So before I let you go, Kurt Warner, how much exposure have you had to Lance? Talk to him. How do you think he's going to handle this? What's your gut?
I actually did get to go to camp and got to interview him at camp and talk to him a little bit and really like the young man. Talking to guys, you really did get the sense that they love the young man, the leadership, his attention to being great. So that part of it, I got no question from anybody that he wasn't the right guy from that standpoint. So I really enjoyed talking to him and felt like he was asking me some questions and really felt like he wanted to be great. I just think he's a very young guy that hasn't played a lot of football. And so we don't fully know what he can be yet. But I really liked that part of it. And I got that sense that, man, he was willing to do what needed to be done. And they were really excited about that piece, that he was in early. And he was talking to even, the Montanas and the Youngs and reaching out to those guys and trying to glean as much as he could from anybody that was willing to give him some help. So I did get the sense that they're fully behind him as a young man and as a leader. Now it's just can the play equal what they believe they have in the person?
All right, Kurt. Next time I have you on, let's talk more about the rest of the league. I just wanted to. This is honestly,
we got lost in that one.
No, but this is the story not of just today, but this is now one of the top stories of the entire league. Is that the fact that Jimmy G, after all of this, right? I mean, we talked about it right at the draft that clearly they moved, or before the day they traded up to number 3 overall. It's just like, well, clearly Jimmy G's not the long-term answer there, and yet he started the next year. They almost made the Super Bowl. He gets hurt. He has surgery. They give him a chance to be traded. There are no partners for him. They didn't even give him updated material for practicing in training camp, where they didn't even have him sit in on meetings, and then boom, he's sticking around. I mean,
you can't make this stuff up.
You
right?
can't.
It's why we love the NFL. There's always these crazy, unbelievable storylines that keep us excited and interested going into the season.
Or maybe Lance goes on a run for the ages and has a movie made out of his life about 20 years from now. Could be that. Thanks. Yes. Kurt Warner said it can happen, by the way.
He would know, Rich. Kurt? He would know.
What do you know about that sort of stuff? All right.
I've heard stories.
Best of Brenda. I'll see you next week.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care. That's Kurt Warner, everybody. We'll be on together on Tuesday night on NFL Network for the season preview.
We need Kyle Shanahan to come out today, Rich, and be like, this team will rally behind Trey
Lance, and we're going to win. Hey, look, and that's one of the many reasons why I love having Kurt on. Does he know about coming from a small school, not playing a lot of football, getting thrown into a situation for which there's really no rehearsal? Does he know about winning a Super Bowl in one place and then showing up somewhere else, and they draft a rookie that they're going to have to turn to, and they turn to him, and the rest of the locker room turns to him as a veteran, saying, why are we taking this? Why are we playing that? I know that he's first overall, but that doesn't mean for anything right now.
Right.
Yeah, he knows that. And he said veterans are coming up to him, but God bless him, one of the best human beings on planet Earth. He's the one, after almost coming back and saving the team's bacon against the Ravens, who goes into Tom Coughlin's office saying, you need to go out and say it's not my job right now. I know the locker room. I know what's going on. You need to go out and say it's not my job. And say it's Eli's job. And Garoppolo, by all accounts, is a great human and might do the same thing. And I can only imagine Lynch and Shanahan and the rest sat him down and say, look, man, if you do this, this is the way it's going to be. It's Lance's gig.